Hello, everybody. Hi. It's me, CJ Miller. I'm doing a video for my YouTube channel, and I'll try to keep it brief, and I'll fail miserably. Me talking a long time. Okay, so yeah, no, I want to talk a little bit, a little off topic from what I usually talk about. Normally, I talk about my love of my hometown, uh, and I do love my hometown, and as a means of being of service to my hometown. And I'll tell you something else to segue into this. I'm an addict in recovery, have been for over 13 years. Um, uh, so what I do uh, as sort of a thank you and appreciation, and really it's to further my own personal recovery, is I talk with people in rehabs on occasion. And so this leads to my topic, which is atypical of my usual YouTube. But that's okay because I don't have followers anyway. I mean, no one's following, so that's kind of cool. I can pretty much feel like I can say what I want to say, and it's still going to be uh, anonymous. I won't mention names other than my own anyway. And I want to say that my experience is mine and that I am not a spokesperson for any facility or uh, recovery method. I'm only speaking from my experience and the experience of what I've seen in the recovery of other people. Now that I preface that, I'm going to get right into it. I don't know it. I don't know that we're getting uh, all the time the message clear about addiction, what addiction actually is. Uh, because I had someone, a new person in the facility that I was talking at today, and it was she, and she said that well, she started talking about the specific drug of heroin, and then she started talking about because the needle, and when you get this needle and this and that, it's a whole next level, and I mean, really, it's not really next level. It's not really next level the way she talked about it. And then so I let her kind of run that out. You new people when they're really new in rehab and they're just coming off of whatever kind of drugs and everything. There's a lot of wheel spinning. There's a lot of gee, I've had these thoughts and now I want to get them out. But it's up to us who have been around in recovery to kind of uh, get to the nitty gritty of addiction. Uh, and so I did my best to kind of compliment her on her openness, and then I wanted to get her to a meeting that I felt. So I directed her to maybe attend some meetings where I felt that she would get um, some information that can help her if she's willing to apply. And I'm going to give that information here because, when you're a guest at a facility, you really kind of sort of have to mind your manners and you can't go at length or in detail. Uh, if you have any sort of uh, means of trigger or you're slippery or whatever, you might want to tune this out because I'm going to tell you in detail every addict in recovery has known what it's like, uh, has known what it's like, no matter what the drug, they've known what it's like to smell it, to hear it, being prepared to hear. The crackheads know what it's like to hear the crackle of a, the when you're lighting it and you know what I mean. Um, Potheads know what it's like to look at this texture of marijuana and this other texture of marijuana, compare the difference and almost become like a connoisseur. The same way that a person who's fond of Italian cuisine might compare the different semolina pastas, which are pasta is pasta to most people, but no, to someone who's really trained in uh, there's a different uh, quality to a manicotti than a rigatoni. You know, um, from from a fettuccine to a spaghetti, same goddamn dough, different quality. Okay, so and then okay, so yeah, there's different qualities to this marijuana, you know, and then there's the um the obsession over the paraphernalia that she talked about, the the loving the loving of the needle and the sight and the feel, you know, and every addict knows what it's like. Every alcoholic, even an alcoholic, is just an addict who's addicted to alcohol. They may not even feel addicted to anything else because maybe they don't even do anything else. Some people are do different types of drugs, and some people, but the obsession. You let an alcoholic trying to abstain without some sort of program, you let them see an ad on television of a big, cold, frosty mug of beer and the sizzle of the head as it's been poured from the tap and the we know what it's like to obsess over that shit and fucking want it. You know what I mean? We really do. Uh, the marijuana people, you know, we know what it's like to drive by the head shop and know that inside there's all these different nifty little things, you know, wooden packers with one hitters, and uh, then there's uh, then there's the cool whole culture of this water bong and this pipe and this all these different little styles and cools and little toys to go along with it. And it all satiates and supports our lifestyle, our way of life as a fucking stoner. Because, oh my God, it's cool as fuck. But really, underneath it all, yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's, you're, no one addict, because they gravitate towards one certain drug or certain combination of drugs, you know, it is different than another. I uh, used to be addicted to a specific type of drug. I do all kind of drugs, not anymore, but I did. But there was this one type of drug that I did when I lived in a coastal city, and then when I moved back inland, and it was like, oh my God, this shit's been stomped on so many times that I could bake bread with this shit. You know what I mean? It's like it's bullshit here. And so I quit doing that one particular drug because I tell you what, who wants to be high for 3 seconds? You know what I mean? Thus ended my obsession with that. Uh, so anyway, when we're in the treatment centers, counselors, if you're a counselor and you're hearing this, hear what your clients have to say, and then really get into the literature of the different programs and the fellowships that you're going to refer them to after they leave your care. In after 30 or 60 days, when they leave your charge and they're no longer in your palm of your hand, care about them enough to tell these people that it's not about the substance, it is about the disease. The substance or the combination of substance is just, it's a symptom. It's a way to maybe even self-medicate the disease, but dystonically uh, perpetuates the disease. Um, have your people stop focusing on all the ways that they're different, because those differences are going to separate them. Those differences are going to get them dead instead of getting them into treatment that's going to be substantial. And I'm talking about this because I love people and I care about human lives, and I know that there is a way. I've been clean via my program for 13 years, you know, and it helps to be open minded, you know. But to get honest with this, it's not about the particular substance, and it's not about the consequence, because I'll tell you something else. Well, let me get to this. Let me just finish this point real quick, and then I'll move on to the next point. Um, this comparing this drug means that I'm so much worse of an addict. I'm on a whole next level addict than you. That's not true. That kind of thinking is going to get you I'm so bad of an addict that maybe this treatment of recovery, maybe it's not going to work for me because I'm so bad. That's the first lie. And the second lie is this: B. I'm a real bad addict on this drug because it's so hardcore. Once I've given that up, well, I don't necessarily have to give up some of these other drugs because I'm not really addicted to them. That's not really my problem. See, having this focus on these specific types of drugs and ignoring the consequences of the other drugs or whatever. See, that's our loopholes. Two loopholes. I'm so sick of an addict that I can't be cured. And the only thing I have to do is give up these particular drugs, but I don't have to give up every single drug. Mm, terrible. I couldn't go on at length about this in the rehab, but I will be talking about it in my meetings. And I really do suggest people when they get out of the rehabs and everything, you got to get to the people who have been where you are so they can show you how to get to where you want to be. If the goal is active recovery, you know. What was I gonna say? Oh, consequences. Yeah, I'll finish this point, and then I'll come up to a summary. And okay, I'm going long, but I knew that I would. Um, this is just not something I'm gonna rush. I will tell you this: the obsession is the same from drug to drug to drug to drug to drug. Not even drug, but behavior. I've known uh, gambling addicts who have turned up dead because they couldn't stop gambling and they've lost it all and they've given it all away. You know what I mean? I've known gambling addicts have to go live in a in a in a fucking rehab for people who gamble. Uh, it's another form of addiction. You know what I mean? I've known people who give away everything for food and eventually their own lives for food, for their compulsive overeating. Um, you know, it's another form of addiction. I've known people who have, uh, I almost died over a person that I really wasn't even that in love with. In retrospect, that's codependence. Uh, you know what I mean? Another form of addiction. So this is not about the chemical that I put in my system. And it's not about the method that I get into my system. It is about the actual disease, the real symptoms, um, and the lack of being able to cope uh, with the addictive mindset. I've known alcoholics. Alcohol, it's everywhere, right? And it's practically free, dependent upon, you know what I mean? You could be a snob or whatever, but I've known alcoholics give away wives, husbands, mothers, fathers, lovers, fucking children, don't matter. And they'll give it all away to go live under a bridge and then slink out of their holes when it's time to panhandle for a few pennies here, nickel or a dime here, or a quarter here, or whatever kind of hustle. And then they'll get to the corner store and get the most disgusting, cheapest malt liquor that they can get, or the bottle of. Oh my God, this was so terrible. I don't even know what this shit was. It was purple and some weird. It was a syrupy kind of stuff. I don't know, and that was so disgusting that the guys at the liquor store. I mean, they were like just give it, like, we can't even sell it here, take it, give us whatever kind of pocket change you have and take this nasty stuff. um I mean, I've run the gamut. uh Most people do. um I've isolated myself from family in the past, and didn't know that I was going to live through it all. And there's a lot of people who have had these types of situations. And I'm telling once and for all, it is not about the drugs. Um, take the drug away, take all the drugs away, and do not put a plan of recovery and action in that place. I've seen the person in that scenario end up dead, suicide, because the only thing they treated was a symptom of chemical use. They did not treat uh, the emotional component that goes along with that. You know, it's one thing to treat the physical, but you have got to treat the emotional. You know, and beyond that, you've also got to give the brain time to realign and heal itself from the chemical abuse and the damage that gets done to the endocrine system, the serotonins and all that kind of stuff, the serotonin receptors and dopamine receptors and all that brain chemistry bullshit that we really, really screw off in our head. Um, yeah, we got to give that a chance to correct itself, and as much as it can, you know. Um, Gotta stop the bullshit. Gotta stop looking at the differences in recovery when you're in recovery. You got to really listen with an open mind. Honesty is the first thing. Got to get honest with the fact that we're addicts and what addiction really is. That's honesty. Then we got to get open minded to listen to the other person, their point of view, not to disqualify, not to look for loopholes, but to look for honest answers that are going to be helpful to myself and to my fellow addicts. Uh, what we have in common, what we truly have in common. When I'm telling you about my obsession over these drugs, these combination of drugs and this and the escalation, listen to the other person, and don't belittle that experience. Just because a person may not have gone to the same length that I went to does not mean that they're not headed on that same fucking path. The one-upmanship bullshit is gonna get people killed. Gotta cut it out. Gotta stop it. Gotta start with an open mind, looking at what we have in common and finding those people who have our common goals of recovery. And then a next component is the willingness to do this, wanting to be in recovery, willing to do the action, to do my part in recovery is key. You can take away the drug, put me in a rehab, do everything in the world to give me every advantage. But if I'm truly not willing to recover, I'm not going to recover. That is pretty much, you take a person who's in the hospital and they're suffering from any other disease, and it's kind of, maybe it's touch and go, you know what I mean? And if the person is ready to go, you can't really save a person's life once that person is given up, and you cannot force a person into recovery if they don't have the willingness. Maybe you can remove it, and then maybe the fog will lift, and maybe they'll have an awakening if it's their will and it's aligned with God's will, and God kind of smacks them in the head, you know. But also there are many different schools of thought throughout the different religions and everything like that. Recovery, these, and I'm specifically thinking of 12-step recovery. 12-step recovery. It works for people of many faiths. You know what I mean? It really does. It really does. Uh, so for those people who are thinking about who's going to go to heaven and who's going to go to hell or whatever, and all that, that's the business of the spiritual leaders of the different faiths and the different beliefs and everything like that. I'm telling you, no matter what that walk of life is, if there's a benevolence to that faith, then then this can work. 12-step recovery can work. 12-step recovery has worked for the person who's agnostic, which is a polite way of saying atheist, and dogmatically so, provided there was an open mindedness enough to walk along the path uh, uh, of these 12 steps and see what happens. No one's asking anybody to fake it. Uh, just start wondering, hey, suppose what if? And if you honestly feel that the atheist and everything, you know what? As long as you can follow along a line of spiritual principle of having accountability at least to your fellow man with some sort of benevolence and goodwill, then hey, there's a certain spirituality that's germane to that, all its own, that can get you to where you need to go to find the recovery that you need. Because I've seen it. I've seen it. So with that, what we want to do is we want to stop focusing on the differences because they don't fucking matter. What matters and what will save lives, because people die from addiction. I've already talked about that. I've been to some addict funerals. It's terrible to go to addict funerals. It saves lives to look at what we have in common. If you're an addict and you've not compromised your every principle, if you've got principles that you had not sacrificed, if you've got lines that you have not crossed, you probably will cross those lines if you live long enough to do it, unless you find yourselves in recovery. And I'm not saying this to preach. I felt passionately about this, and I needed to kind of sort of vent in a way that I could not in the institution that I was visiting as a guest. But I do hope that some of those people will come to a 12-step meeting. So I will lay this out. If I'm, I will talk about this. This is exactly how I share in a meeting. I'm not trying to take away everything that person said about heroin, everything they said about it, and the way they used it. Everything was absolutely true from their perspective, because perspective, it's relative. And everything that they said, ditto to the alcoholic, ditto to the pothead, ditto to the crackhead, ditto to the overeater, ditto to the gambler, ditto to the sex addict, which is, it's all these addictive things, I don't know. I feel like, yeah. So I've gone on twice as long. I always want to do these videos and try to do around 15 uh, more or less, and I've been going over. So I don't know. I think after this, I'm going to try to get a little lighter on my topics, but I just really needed to talk about this, needed to vent. Um, we got to stop fixating on the drugs, and we actually got, or the particular drug, and we got to actually start focusing on the disease, which, oh my God, we have a uh, methamphetamine epidemic. Motherfucker, that's not new. That's not new. You know, people have been fixating, and drugs have been an epidemic ever since there have been drugs. And it's never about the drug, it is about the disease of addiction. There are people who can dabble once in a while, and they're not addicts. Addicts, we don't dabble, you know. And it's not even about the frequency, it's not about the amount, and it's not about the frequency. It's about the personal consequence and everything that we'll lose. And then there'll be people, sometimes they'll get a little tough and they'll say, the consequences never got me clean. They never get, da, da, da. Whatever. Whatever. What if the consequences didn't get you clean, if they weren't enough to get you clean, what drove you into the thing in the first place? All this one-upmanship and everything. That's gotta stop, you know. All the disqualifying of the and all the tough guy bullshit. Ooh, God, I love people when they first come out of jail. Do I look exceptionally tough? um, hey, I'm not. But I've come through more bullshit than just about anybody that I've ever met, or at least as much. Um, I don't, and I'm not taken away from anyone else's experience. I'm saying that there's not a single person who's gone through stuff so horrifying that they cannot recover uh, from addiction if they don't have, as long as they can be honest, as long as they can be honest enough to open their mind and then be willing to put that into practice, then recovery is a possible thing. And no addict is worse off than another addict. You know, there's one state from which you're not going to come back, and that's being brain dead. You know, because as long as you can still think, you still have a chance. You know. Okay, so yeah, I mean, there have been people who have died and who have been resuscitated and have been able to recover. So maybe death doesn't have to be an answer, because maybe death, hey, maybe people can come back from death now. That's true. Um, that's why I do not have a do not resuscitate. No, I will leave behind some stuff, but it will be very descriptive. Uh, uh, Hell yes, resuscitate. Hell yes, resuscitate. Every single time that you're going to resuscitate me, and that's cool. As long as I've got thought in my head, and we can recognize that never mind. I will leave my living will. I'm not going to leave it here because it will be seriously misinterpreted. This isn't about living wills. I'll do that later. This is about uh, the commonality that one addict has with every other addict. And you're not so fucked up that you can't recover. You're not. And no matter who you are or what you've done, I feel you, I see you, I know you, addict to addict, and person to person. And I love you. Because, no, we're not so different. Anyway, that's it. Peace. Good night. Love you. Ciao.